Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Astrology for Beginners. This is video number 8 of 30. About 30 10 to 15 minute videos which will assist you in getting a good understanding of what astrology is about. Now, what you must do is go to the playlist that's on my channel. It's very easy to find. There's just like a table of contents, a subject called Astrology for Beginners. Go into that and you'll see all the videos there entitled, and you can pick and choose from whatever you are. But I would suggest that you do them in order, because the mystical outpouring is really demonstrated by the more sequential viewing of the videos. But today we're talking about Taurus and the mystical symbol for Taurus. Now, you will have seen cows' heads or cows or all sorts of things as a symbol for Taurus. And what you will also very often see, and I'll just do these roughly because it's more personal to do it this way, you may see a symbol which is something like that as being the glyph or symbol for the sign of Taurus. That is wrong. You may also see a symbol or glyph which has these horns more well developed in a sense like that. Let me put it through there. And so you get it looking more, well, when I say that, it's more with the horns pushing out over the edges like this. That's very often what you'll see. That's more like it. That's what you'll very often see. Again, representing the horns of a bull. Now, of course, if these things make it easier for you to remember, then by all means do it. But the actual mystical glyph for Taurus, and the reason why I say the mystical glyph is because the symbols for each of the planets, and the planets we've covered in the videos before this, each of the planets and each of the signs of the zodiac have very mystical backgrounds, with the exception, of course, of Uranus, Neptune and Pluto, which were just made up for something. This is more like this is really the real esoteric symbol for Taurus, which has been handed down by seers for thousands of years. There is, and I'm not an artist, but you can see that there is really an arc on top of a circle. In fact, it's the same symbol. You would think that when you look at the earlier symbols that we have for the planets, you will see that the symbol for Mercury is that with the cross underneath it, whereas in this case, this cross does not appear, but it is otherwise the same symbol as it is for the planet Mercury. Now, Taurus, of course, is the bull of the zodiac. Taurus comes after Aries. Aries is the first. It's not a mistake or a lottery as to whether or not Aries was the first. The qualities of Aries, and I refer you to the video that we did just prior to this one, Aries is about manifestation, about spirit promoting the emergence of matter and of spirit and souls coming into matter and running around everywhere. Well, this is the second stage where things become a little bit more directed. The second stage of the cosmic evolution is contained in Taurus, and it is the active creative energy which is there. Aries was really more about experiencing the newness of manifestation. Now, at this stage in Taurus, what the energy does, the divine energy does, is it immerses itself in the process of manifestation. Now, there is therefore, I'd ask you to note, a subtle difference between the way the creative force in the sign of Aries and in the sign of Taurus act. That is between the first and the second signs. The creative force in Aries is unclear, vague, almost an undirected type of thing, almost as if it's a kid in a candy store looking to say something of this and this and that and that. Well, the second stage in Taurus, the energy imparts a more specific goal. Taurus has an objective that it wants to get to. So in Taurus, there is no immediate desire or impulse for the production of things. Rather, there's more of a desire to unite, to come together, rather than to produce and to create and to go and do all this sort of things. That type of activity we'll see in the next video in Gemini, but I won't give anything away now. At this stage in Taurus, desire is more important than action is. And under Taurus, the desire is to strive for a creative union. A creative union. At this point also, I'll mention that spirit is not differentiated. This is pure spirit, pure soul coming in, undifferentiated and unindividualized. Here the divinity is essentially an impulse for externalizing the latent forces which reside within the soul. It wants to take those forces and externalize them, to bring them out into reality. Now, one might consider the act of fathership as an analogy in this situation. During the procreative act, the father ejects sperm seeds to fertilize the egg. That is, if you like, taking the internal essence of the person in order to then externalize it into the creation of another object. Now, rather than ignore the importance of female principle here, the male principle is active and the female principle representing nature is passive. And of course, it is the great part of the female principle to receive that egg, to receive the fertilized egg, I should say, and to produce it to childbirth, to delivery, even though it takes a lot of work and worry over a long, long time. That's something which is taken on by the women. Now, in the symbol for Taurus, the divine essence is really symbolized by this enclosed circle. That's the divine essence in a sense that we can say here. Now, during the process of creation, you might recall that we spoke of some in yesterday, the other previous video, we spoke of sections of this circle in relation to Aries. Well, I'm going to speak of these sections of the circle here as one section, and this section as another section. But during the process of creation, the urge connects the innermost spiritual essence with its blossoming forth. Now, this is represented by these quadrants. Now, that's the first quadrant, you could say, of the circle. This is the second quadrant. This is the third, roughly. Again, apologies for left-handed use of bad art. And this is the fourth quadrant. These quadrants here, we referred to those in the discussion of Aries, didn't we? Well, let's now look at this quadrant here and this quadrant here. I'll call it a quadrant, but this section, if you like, but call it a quadrant for the purposes of example. Let me explain. We're dealing with the divine creative urge in Taurus. Quadrant 2 represents the creative urge being passionate, impulsive, self-seeking, and really having no interest in anything which doesn't serve the soul itself. Quite like a bull in a paddock or a field full of cows. It just takes its time in relation to things and is just focused on an object and has no interest in anything else. But then what we find is that in the sign of Taurus, and I'll say here that the moon is exalted in the sign of Taurus, and what I'll get into exaltation of different signs in a later video. But suffice it to say that what happens is that during the Taurian period, the moon being exalted starts to draw that aspect of the soul away from self-centeredness, away from greed, away from self-indulgence, I suppose. And what happens is that the intelligence and the maturity of this soul increases. And the soul then, at this point, has a sense of I-ness. It has a sense of I-ness. It has a sense that it is something, but it is not yet has a sense of being separate from other things. And again, we'll talk about that in Gemini. But what we find here is that the soul, during this quadrant of the Taurian period, it then starts with the increase in intelligence and maturity to see the cosmic storyline in full and to see the soul's place in that storyline and to recognize its limitations in the storyline. It then has a desire to be released, and it desires to have the further downpour of divine energy. And this downpour of divine energy is received into this cup or receptacle-like object. That's why drawings with horns on them, like this or like that, they don't do the job, because it's really not horns at all. It is in fact a receptacle that arc on the top of the disc starts to see. So what happens is then that Taurus then wants to begin to express, with the assistance of the divine, its true self. That's the mystical explanation for this symbol for the sign of Taurus. Next video we're doing Gemini. And until then, remember one thing, and it is this, that you are a legend. And I look forward to seeing you next time. And until then, it's bye for now.